This is the Ecwid Ecommerce Show with your host, Jesse Ness, along with Richard O'Tay.
All right. Welcome back, Ecwid listener, Ecwid user, champion. So as you can tell, it's not really Jesse and I both today. It's myself hosting the show by myself. And today I'm excited. We have Nicole Horowitz, the content marketing manager at Ecwid. And she's been working on a really cool series on how to sell online if you're a beginner. And I always love bringing on the Ecwid employees that are doing really cool projects within Ecwid, so you can get to know them a little deeper, get to know a little bit more of the why behind what they're doing too. And I'm excited to have you on, Nicole. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about this series that you're working on. I know you have another one that's coming out here shortly, part 4. So depending upon when this episode airs, it may have just come out or it's about to come out. But tell me a little bit about your idea behind it and what your goals are.
Yeah, so for the Ecwid blog, we always think about ways to make content that has a human element to it. We like to have informative posts to help troubleshoot or to help inspire, but mostly we wanted to start focusing on content that was going to sort of tell a more human story about how you could use Ecwid as a product, but sort of apply it in a real, authentic way. So it was sort of this nice synergistic thing because before I started working at Ecwid from years ago, had a project in mind with a friend of mine to launch a vintage clothing store. And so this seemed like the perfect opportunity to sort of marry the two ideas, to sort of apply the concept of a vintage clothing store to the Ecwid platform and write about my experience, like soup to nuts, beginning to end, all the good, all the bad along the way.
So if you're taking us through this series, and even though you're listening right now, I encourage you to read the blog as well, because we're probably going to go a little bit on some areas that might be redundant that you've already, and there's nothing wrong with repeating the basics. We all know anyone who's tried to do anything of significance, you gotta repeat things over and over again sometimes before they stick in. So I definitely encourage you, even though you're listening here, to read the blog as well. But what's the starting point? Where do you think people should start first?
That's a great question because I think it's always different. I think obviously you want to start with an idea, something that inspires you, a product you want to sell, or maybe just a concept for a store, maybe a concept for a brand, maybe a name plus something that sounds really cool to sell, or just, oh, I love, home furnishings. I want to get into that, and then you can narrow it down. The best place to start, I think, is with an idea that you feel genuinely excited about, like a seed of an idea.
Yeah, no, I love the way you word that, because I had another show a while back called Beyond 8 Figures, and we would interview people that were either making $10 million a year or more, or sold a business for $10 million a year or more. Wow. And it was amazing to me that you would think all of them like had the business plan and knew, but I was blown away at how many just started with this seed or started with this general idea, at least half, right? It seemed to be very 50-50. I don't have hard stats on it, but in my recent memory, I want to say at least half of them just started with this passion, this dream or this vision of something they wanted, again, whether it was the product or to do something to help the world or whatever it might be, and then proceeded to build the plane and work on the plane while they were flying the plane. Like, it wasn't all thought out in this business plan. Now I did X, XYZ, now do ABC or any of that. And so one thing though, in my journeys, different journeys throughout entrepreneurialism, it's amazing to me how important it has been in my experience, to pick something that you love or inspires you, not because you're going to love and inspire every moment of the journey, but because if you don't love it and if it doesn't inspire you, it's harder to put in as much work as it takes, right? This is by no means to be discouraging. It's just, that's what entrepreneurs do. We solve problems, right? And problems happen all the time. I have a garden in the backyard. If I want a carrot, I got to plant a carrot. If I want a cucumber, I got to plant a cucumber. But those damn weeds, they show up regardless, right? So I love that. What is there a way that you have for someone to spark it, or to maybe think out this initial dream of I don't know, like, do you recommend doing some sort of research or something that, I don't know, I don't want to coach you one direction or not. It's really more like, what would be the starting point? So they got this dream. What do they do next?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying about the dream is what sort of gets you through the harder parts. And I guess if you're a seasoned business person, then the idea of having a successful business itself is sort of the dream in a way. But if you're a real beginner like I am, then yeah, you have to have something that is going to motivate you. Not that that has to be like a ceaseless passion that you can see 100% of the time, but something that is sort of going to get you through the hard times, or the times that you hit a roadblock and you just want to give up and say, this isn't really worth it. I think in my case, it was really helpful to have a business partner. A friend of mine from graduate school, she sort of, the idea sort of germinated in both of us. We both had an interest in sort of the same things. And she said to me once, like, oh, I have a whole bunch of old clothes in my mom's attic that I've been wanting to sell. And I said to her, like, oh, I used to sell things on Poshmark. And she said, well, I have like a name for this company that I envisioned in my head. And I said, I've never had like a brand or any awareness of that sort of thing. So it was really helpful in those beginning stages, first of all, to realize that somebody else had the same dream or idea in mind, but also then to be able to sort of bounce off of each other and to say, oh, okay, you have this. Okay, I was thinking of this. What do you think of this? Sort of flesh out the plan. I would say if you're not in that situation, then yeah, research is probably your best friend. It has to be you and your computer, looking at what else exists in that field. Does this idea already exist? Does someone already have this name? How can I be different? Is there something for me to contribute or add? Or do I want to just be the best or try to be the best at what I'm doing?
Yeah. So I'd imagine, because you're doing this series and you're doing it, so this could almost, is this like you're taking a hobby and trying to turn that hobby of vintage clothing into a business? Or, you know what I mean? Like, could that be helpful for some people? Because I would imagine if you're just starting a business, the odds of people being able to take if you're just starting a business, the odds of people being able to take a significant amount of money out of the business, I'm going to get that out, in the beginning is probably slim to none, right? So you're probably going to be doing other things. You have a job you're doing, or another business that you've been working on, and you're trying to do something else. How do you envision, or what's your experience been, I should say, on, are you treating it like a hobby in the beginning and seeing where it goes, and we'll put more effort into it later? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to be reasonable with yourself at first, especially if you're a beginner. There's no right answer to how to start a business. And if you've done it before and have capital behind you, by all means. But I think in my situation, or in our situation, you don't want to say to yourself, yes, let's go all in. Let's quit our jobs. Let's spend 40 hours a week doing this, when you know that out of the gate, you're not going to be able to support yourself that way. You have other needs, you have other time allocations, my business partner is in graduate school still. It's things like that. Like, you can't say, okay, we're going to dedicate 100%, knowing that probably you're only going to dedicate 50% and expect to be successful. So I think setting reasonable goals that are growth oriented, but also, not outrageous reaches is the best way to start. I think we had a plan of like, let's make 5 sales either through our Instagram or on an Etsy shop before we even had an Ecwid platform. And that was just like, let's see if this is viable, if anyone is even interested in selling anything that we have. Then if somebody is, okay, let's build a website. Okay, let's add inventory to the website. Let's do blog posts, things like that. And also, you want to not be afraid of growing in different directions. Like, okay, let's budget some time to write. We used to write blog posts for each article of clothing that we sold. And then after a while, we thought, wow, that's a lot of effort we're putting into that. And it's not really doing anything for us. Okay, so let's reallocate that time somewhere else. Now we have an extra, hour, 2 hours a week to spend doing something more useful.
No, that makes sense. And plus I don't really know enough about the store yet, and I definitely want to learn more about it over time. But I'd imagine in this particular case, it could be slightly different than the typical e-commerce store where you're going to have the same product over and over again, mostly, right? Because these sound like unique pieces. Yes. And so when that piece sells, like you have to write a new product description and a whole set of new pictures. And it's not like that product. You probably don't have, 200 of each of these pieces.
Exactly.
I'm assuming. So in that case, or in your case, did you start with a budget? Did you start with, we have this much money? Did you start with, how did you decide where you were going next?
Yeah, once we had the idea down and once we had sort of talked each other into actually doing the thing, because I think sometimes, you talk about an idea. Oh yeah, this is an idea. Oh yeah, it's our, fake imaginary store. And then we had to sit down one day and say, okay, we're actually going to do this. I think the first thing we did was we got an Instagram profile and an email account with the name that we wanted. And that was sort of like proving to ourselves, okay, yes, this is real. We now, own this little piece of internet real estate for free. And then, yes, I think a time and a monetary budget, both of those together were really important steps. We met up and we said, okay, how much extra cash do you have around, and how much inventory do you already have? Because my business partner had said like, oh yeah, I have some stuff to sell that I really love in my mom's place. And I had the same thing. So that was one of the first things we did, was sort of like an inventory budget plus, okay, we have $200. Do we want to spend that on more inventory? Do we want to spend that on advertising? What do we want to do with that? And then how many hours a week between the two of us can we designate for just this project? Mm-hmm. I think that sort of budget, like a resource budget that goes beyond just money and numbers, I think is really important when you're just starting out, because otherwise you'll do too much or too little, and either way is probably really bad for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you'll get some sort of feedback. You'll know if that was too much, or you'll know if that's too little. But you got to pick something, yes. Right? Kind of back to the comment of like some of these people on that other show that I did, they just started going and they adjusted along the way. So what are your thoughts on, say, well, it's a perfect example. I'll go back to your store. I was going to say, like, on picking an actual product, right? They might have a general idea. The listener now who's going, wow, yeah, I just logged in. I got my free account. I'm interested. I'm still in these starting stages. I have a dream. I'm trying to figure out what kind of product. In your case, you have these unique pieces that are going to disappear, and you're going to have new products someday. There's only going to be so much in each of your mother's attics or wherever it is, right? How do you see moving forward, or how could you help someone that's having these same thoughts of how do I narrow down my niche? How am I going to narrow down what this product is? Are you doing research on what's selling out there already and trying to do something slightly different? Are you going to make your own unique stuff? What are your goals, and or what are your thoughts for the person who's kind of going through that same thought process right now?
Yeah, I could speak to what we're doing a bit, which might look drastically different from somebody else's idea based on what niche they're in. We've decided to keep it pretty open. Both of us like to go thrift shopping and to estate sales and to, Goodwill outlets and little thrift shops around town. So we have kept a portion of our budget open for new inventory because that's the nature of our particular business. If we find a piece that we love somewhere that we think could sell well, we'll try to pick it up where we can, and we'll try to scope out venues or avenues for that, which was sort of a hobby for both of us anyway, so it doesn't feel like extra work, if that makes sense. And yeah, we've also talked about expanding into sort of bespoke or hand sewn, threaded, or upcycled goods. My business partner, Kate, she sews. So we've sort of done experiments with that. I think we put 2 bucket hats, like 90s inspired bucket hats, on the site to see if they would sell. And I think one of them did. And so we said, okay, this is something to look into, keep working towards. But making inventory is much more resource intensive in a way than finding inventory. So maybe that shifts our time allocation, always budgeting that in.
Well, and if you start doing bespoke stuff, you're going to be able to sell it for a lot more too, which will help. Plus, you like writing, so coming up with a new description of this cool new thing you found could kind of be part of your whole process, at least on your side. I don't know with your partner, but I know, because I personally love the swap meet. My daughter loves going with me, just thrifting and stuff like that too. That can be part of the adventure. You found this little treasure that someone else, like, I can't believe someone threw this out or gave this away, like, what? Like, you want to get rid of this? This is so cool. But yeah, the fact that, so for somebody that doesn't get into that as much, they're going to probably want to pick a more traditional, repeatable product that they don't have to write this new description every single time, but this fits you, right? And part of why we're going about this conversation like this is we want to be very clear to whoever is hearing this in their ears right now. Like, it's most important that you remember your tendencies, the things you like, the things you don't, where your weakness is, where might you need some help, where might you have to outsource, what are the things you like to do. If you don't like writing a lot and you don't like blogging a lot, well, gosh, to some degree, content is like the gateway drug towards commerce. So you're going to have to find something. Do you like taking pictures? Do you like podcasting? Do you like, you're going to have to find some sort of way, whether it's creation of content or pictures and sharing via social. And I'm sure we'll cover that when we have you back as this project moves forward for you. I'm actually super excited for you. This is really cool. What, is there any sort of, let's say we know it's a dream. We know you got to get started. We're not really going to get into the specific weeds of setting up the store right now. Picking your niche. We've talked about budgeting, not just money, but budgeting your time, your resources, and what you're working with. Are there any other kind of tips or ideas that you could think that we didn't really cover, or something you would like to emphasize again in this beginning process for someone who's they're just now looking into doing this, and they're hearing this, they're like, all right, this is cool. I want to watch this journey. I want to hear what's going on, but they're still trying to figure out their unique approach to what it is they're going to pick, or what it is they're going to work on. Is there anything else that you could think that we didn't really cover here that they might be interested in or might spark an idea for them?
Yeah, we sort of covered this in a roundabout way, I suppose, but I would maybe emphasize that if you're just starting out, no matter what niche you're in, no matter what you're interested in selling, like, I think trial and error is really the key here, and not to get discouraged, to sort of come at everything with a like, let's throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks sort of approach, because there are going to be things that don't work, that are wrong, that kind of get in your way. And I think if you go into it with, okay, but we were just trying this, now let's pivot to something else, you're going to have a much easier time than saying, okay, this is my plan, here, let me implement it. And then every time something goes wrong, you're going to want to tear your hair out, probably be sitting there like, okay, what do I do now? So yeah, trial and error, and just there's no one size fits all method to starting a business. It'll vary so drastically depending on, yeah, what skills you bring to the table, what you're interested in selling or making to sell. I think that really helps you create a brand identity as well, which is important and we haven't really touched on. But I think, yeah, like my brand is going to be really different from other people's, and that's the point. That's good. And so if you have something that doesn't match this at all and doesn't seem to fit into the sort of footpath that I've laid out, that's good. That's how it should be, probably.
What are you using for your content marketing on your site? Are you using Duda, WordPress? What are you?
Right now we have a WordPress, and we also have an instant site with Ecwid, and we have yet to merge them due to some paid plan, free plan inequities. But yeah, we've been using WordPress for our like content blog side of things.
Sweet, that's cool. I like the direction you're going, especially, again, reiterating that you like writing, and I'm only bringing this up because this is got to play into your strengths. You have a unique opportunity to not just tell the story through Ecwid, but on your own blog, almost more importantly, because these are people who are into vintage, they're into probably thrifting. You could give them tips on how to find it, because there's no way you're going to be able to find everything. So being their guide in this journey where they get to be the hero, right? Like the classic hero's journey thing. You get to be Obi-Wan and you're helping them go through this journey of finding this stuff. And here's good tips you could do and all this stuff. They're going to want to support you and your efforts in your business, and you're sharing your journey along the way. And as we all know, people love to help support what they think they help create. So, let's just say a tip from me to you would be, as you do this, I would definitely focus for sure on building a list and teaching them all the things that you're learning along the way, not just the obvious, like we'll do on this show, as far as like how to do the store, but specifically in your case, how, what to look for in the thrift store, kinds of things you like to look for in the thrift store, ways about talking to the people in the store that you might get, they'll let you know when it comes in first because you befriended them, like whatever those things are. So then finally, when you do get to the place where you're deciding, oh man, should we make our own? Should we do this? You now have a relationship with those people via your email list and your blog and your communication with them. And now they're going to let you know. They'll be like, oh yeah, I would do that if you made those, or, how about if you did this? And so it's still your business, right? So you're still going to make the decision, but to be able to have that communication with those people along the way, you can continue to do what you're loving doing right now. And as you get the feedback from them, you never know, they might be the people who fund that first purchase of inventory for you when you go to do something specific that's repeatable a little easier, right? And I know that sounded strange, like repeatable easier, but I think you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm excited for you. I'm excited to have you back on in let's just say a month-ish, and we'll hear a little bit more about your journey, more of the specifics of setting up some of the stuff in the store and how to go about it. And I believe your next one is on Instagram or something like that, and selling on that and your experience with that. So that'll be really cool. And just want to say thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on the show and sharing with the Ecwid listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. And look forward to having you on. And remember, everybody out there, get out there and make it happen. Take care.
Hey, this is Jesse and Rich. We want to let you know we really appreciate you listening.
We hope you find the tips we give you helpful for growing your business.
You can find all of our past episodes and a lot more useful stuff at ecwid.com/podcast.
And also, check us out on your favorite podcasting platform like Apple Podcast or Stitcher. And make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing.
Be sure to let us know what you think by rating and reviewing so we can serve you better.
So subscribe on your favorite platform.
And come join our community, check out the transcripts, or tell us why you would be a great guest at ecwid.com/podcast.